Teacher, writer and poet Sebabatso Thulo's new book is titled Dear Black Parents, a Letter from Your Child's Teacher. Well, this book offers letters, poems, lessons and healing suggested for parents to use as a guide to have a better, meaningful and healthy relationships with their children. Sebabatso Thulo is in the studio with us this morning to tell us more about this jam. Sebabatso, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
I'm so excited. I am so excited to be here. It's such an honor.
I'm even more excited to chat to you because this is a book that is very, very important because it speaks to the daily lives that parents and students and teachers face alike and the kind of relationship that this tripartite face. And what gave you the urge to write this book?
There were 4 things that really inspired me to write it. One, I'm a high school teacher, so I was inspired by the daily heartbreak that I see in the learners that I teach, caused by parents, by the way. Not only the heartbreak, but the insecurities, the lack of self-esteem that is caused by parents. And secondly, parents like to say, oh, these children don't listen.
The lack of self-esteem caused by parents?
The way that parents speak to their children, they can speak down to their kids.
Oh, okay.
The way that parents affirm their kids. Sometimes, by the way, I have to say this, parents have a tendency of affirming what the child does instead of who the child is. And when we do that, right, and say my child is a soccer player, and then that day he misses the goal, I've messed up their self-esteem because all I've ever celebrated is my child's playing soccer. I've never spoken about how well-mannered my child is. And those are the things that stand the test of time.
Right.
And another thing that I must say is that parents also, I was inspired by how parents keep secrets in the name of, I'm trying to protect my child.
Okay.
Right? And that's not true, because if there was a bomb in this building, for example, the best way that the people can protect us is by telling us there's a bomb in this building. Okay. And this is what will happen if, you get what I'm saying?
Not
withholding the information. Yeah. And that's exactly what parents do. They keep secrets and they don't tell the children because they are protecting their kids. And that's not true.
You know, Sebabatso, there's this tendency of parents of, delegating their parental duties to the teachers. And you and I know that pupils and students spend more time with teachers than with parents.
Right.
Because, after work, they spend like a couple of hours and then everybody goes to sleep. So do you get a sense then that teachers take advantage of that position, of that situation, by building a more solid relationship with the students and learners?
1000%. 1000%. I think I know I could write this book, right? I'm not a parent, but I could write this book. Why? Because of the relationship that I've spent with my children, the relationship that I have with the children I teach, the times that I've spent with them.
Right, right. Now, talk to us about some of the key lessons you share in this book that each and every parent need to know.
So I speak about the importance of loving your child loudly. There's a chapter that says you must love your child loudly. There's this concept in Black households that if you love your child too much, you'll spoil them. How can love spoil someone, right? And then there's a very important thing, since this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I speak about the importance of teaching your child about sex, but being honest. And by that, what I'm referring to is I ask, how do you know that your son has never raped someone? We always talk to the girls, but we don't talk to the boys. Like, as a parent, how do you know that your son is not a rapist? Okay. And that's the parent. And then I speak about things like finances. Like, teach your child, especially when when your child starts working, teach your child about finances. If you don't have the knowledge as a parent, take your child to a financial advisor. You can put your child in a better place because, and the big thing that I say in the book is, your child is your investment. It's your greatest investment. You want to make sure that you pour everything into your child so that you have the best giveaway, so that when your child is out in the world, you know that your child is the best friend that anybody could ask for, is the best employer anybody could ask for, is the best citizen that anybody could ask for. And I want to share this. Maya Angelou, when she was 22 years old, she says her mother kissed her and said to her as she was leaving home, 22 years old, her mother said, baby, you might just be the greatest woman I know. You are up there with the historical figures. And look at what she became. Because she said, when she left, she thought, what if my mother's right? And that book says to parents, what if you are raising a Maya Angelou? But you don't want to mess it up, right? Because you want to pour everything into that child.
So basically, the role of affirmation rests on the parents.
1000%.
Yeah.
Before the world tells your child who they are,
indeed,
you want to make sure that you've told your child who they are and who they are not.
and who they are not. Now, Sebabatso, now back to the issue of sexual education. When is the right time to be having conversations with your kids around such a subject? Because, you know, I know that some teachers would be like, hey, when it comes to sexual education, that's not my role. The parents need to delegate that duty. But when is the right time? And there's also issues of morality, because some parents may be shying away from this particular subject on the issues of morality. I can't be talking to my child about this.
Right. Yeah. But as soon as your child starts to be aware of their body, because you want to make sure that if anybody touches your child in an inappropriate way, you've created a safe space so that they can bring it to you.
Right. You talk about how it can be hard for black parents in particular to get most out of their relationships with kids. Yeah?
It's because, again, because here's what parents do.
Yeah.
Throughout our lives, they want to be a little bit like away from their child. They don't want to speak to their children about anything. And then when the child is an adult, they expect this miraculous connection that they never put in there.
Sure.
Right? All of a sudden you're an adult, now you want your child to come and talk to me, now you want to be close with your child.
Yet you never open the lines of communication.
That.
Yeah.
So then it's an awkward conversation to have when your child is 25.
Yeah.
It starts with, from the beginning, your child must know that my mom or my dad or my guardian is a safe place for me.
Okay.
Because naturally, instinctively, when children are born, they will trust that person first.
Indeed, yeah.
Because that's all they know. Literally from birth, they trust their surroundings until that trust is broken. And who breaks the trust? The parent.
And why is it that there is no line of communication, perhaps, between the teachers and the parents? Like, there's no relationship, because these are the key personnel in terms of the growth and the development of the child.
You know what causes that? It's the parents. I'll tell you, as a high school teacher, as soon as a parent calls the school and says, what's happening with my child, all of us pay attention to that child. Why? Because the parents are involved. So it's the parents that have stepped away from the school. But if the parents are to be more involved in the school, I promise you, then there's continuous communication. Because this says to the teachers, this parent cares about their child. And not only do I owe my responsibility to the child, but I owe my responsibility to this parent as well.
You know, so what do you say to parents who may feel, I would say, judged or even attacked by some of the things that you write about in the book?
I'm so glad you asked that, because in the book I say to parents, I'm hugging you and I'm holding you as we have this conversation. Because I know that as a parent, right, if you've never been parented well, how are you going to parent?
Sure.
Like, where must you pour from? Right? And I say to parents, it's okay. I really used a loving tone. And I said to them, it's okay to start again. It's okay to make mistakes. Hence, the book has a healing suggestion at the end that says, this is how I suggest we fix this. And that the good thing is we can always start over. We can always start over.
You know, so right at the beginning of the book, you talk about the importance of parents speaking to their kids. And, you know, my nephew, I used to have this bad habit of speaking to my nephew. He was 5 or 6 years back then, and I kept on correcting him. He kept on making these verbal faux pas and mistakes, and I kept on correcting him. And then I was told that don't actually try avoid doing that, because you are discouraging the child from learning some of the words.
That's so true. That is so true, because you want the child to be able to express themselves.
Indeed.
You see, that's the thing with parenting. You're not making your child like you. Right? You're not making them to become a smart you or whatever.
Sure.
It's you are allowing them to be themselves. They are already a reflection of who you are. Like, as I sit here, I represent my mother, my father, my grandparents, my community that I come from, my uncles. Like, you've met all of them just by me sitting here, right? And that's the thing with that child. But you've got to let them be themselves. You've got to let them just be themselves. And then here and there you can go, that's not how we speak to people. This is not how we do things, but let them be themselves. And
you also encourage openness and transparency between parents and kids, To what extent should that openness and transparency extend?
I say in the book, parents are the mirrors that children use to reflect themselves. So they will use the parent as a mirror to figure out who they are. So if anything affects me as your child, I should know about it. If it will affect me today, affect me in 10 years later, affect me when I'm an old woman, I have to know about it. And because the thing is, even if you don't share it, it will impact the children. Parents think that just because the children don't see it, they don't feel it. But they do. They do. Children really experience everything that you go through. That day when you come back from a heartbreak, maybe somebody you love just broke your heart, and that day you're not talking to anyone in the house because, I mean, you're not going to tell your business to your children, right? they feel that something is wrong. And I'm not saying go now and say to your children, let me tell you something, this boy broke my heart. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I'm saying you want to create a space where I'm not okay today.
Yeah.
Your child must know I'm not okay today, and I'm not okay with what you did. And this is why I'm not okay with what you did. Mm-hmm. You want to create boundaries. Clear boundaries are important. I'm not saying your child is your best friend. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm saying. Your child is your child, right? But they must know they can speak to you, and they must know that you speak to them, especially on issues that will impact them.
Why is it a problem, though, of not making your child your best friend?
See, there's a time for that. When children are still small, they don't know a lot about boundaries. And when you make them best friends, because children are children, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're angels,
sure,
right? When they're still young and you try to make them your best friend, what they do is they don't understand boundaries, so they can manipulate you. I make an example in the book of a parent who overbelieves their child. Mm-hmm. The child gets into the fight, the teacher comes, the parent comes to the school and fights with the teachers. It's because my child is never in the wrong. You spoil your child because in that space, in that friendship space from parent to child, you don't teach your child accountability.
Okay.
Your child doesn't learn that you have to be accountable for your actions, because the child grows up thinking someone will always protect me.
Okay.
I can do wrong, but someone will always protect me. My parents have been doing it all my life.
What about parents apportioning the blame onto the teachers? I like the point you made earlier on, that a child is a mirror and a reflection of a parent. Right. But if a child goes wayward and becomes being naughty at school,
right,
we, as a matter of principle, we blame the parents. And then the parents would be like, Aibo, my child spends most time with the teachers and at school. I've got nothing to do with it.
See, that's another thing. So sometimes your child pretends to be something at home and is something else at school.
Yes.
That happens all the time, right? And what causes that, again, is because of the lack of transparency. There's no communication between, it's important that when something happens at school, at the end of the day, it's your child that did that.
Yeah.
It's your child that did that. So the important thing is, if you are a parent who's really involved in paying attention to your child, you will notice that there's a behavior here that I'm not picking up. Let me call the school. Just even if your child is doing well, let me call the school and check up on my kid, like what's going on. Because it's the thing of, by the time your child goes to school, this family structure, they're already going with what you've taught them. Mm-hmm. We are just building up on what's already been started, right? So it doesn't make sense. So that how can teachers be wrong? How can teachers be wrong?
How can teachers be wrong? That remains a good question, and a burning one, as it were. So tell me about the boundaries in terms of discipline. So how far should teachers go in terms of instilling the discipline where they feel that parents have been lacking in instilling that particular discipline? So
good. When it comes to discipline, I'll tell you, I teach grade 10s, 11s, and 12s, so I'm a senior, I'm a high school teacher. When it comes to discipline, I build from relationship, right? And I'll tell you, when it comes to teachers, this is what I think. It's hard to discipline a child that thinks you hate them. A child that thinks you hate them is difficult, because they're going to feel like the teacher's picking on me. The teacher's doing this and this and this. But
what causes that then? What makes the child think that you hate them?
Again, because of what they understand love to be, and that comes from home.
Okay.
The definition of love comes from home.
Yes.
So howsoever the teacher might treat the child might feel this is unloving. Maybe you're the first person as the teacher to say, not in my classroom.
Yeah.
And then the child feels this is a little bit unloving. But
indeed.
You see.
And I'm basing my question, we're out of time unfortunately, but I'm basing my question, I'm going to use the example of pocket money.
Right.
Say you give your child 50 rand every single day, and then the teacher would be like, Aibo, no child would be spending 50 rand. I'm going to take that money and keep it for you, because you're going to be doing something, wayward as a result of having too much pocket money. And then the parent, on the other hand, knows the reasons why they give the child, because the issues of affordability, that is.
Got you. And that's a communication that has happened between parents and teachers. Especially in a decision where the mother says this and the teacher says that, the parent and the teacher, they have to communicate with each other.
Okay. All right. So unfortunately, we're out of time. But just before I let you go, where do we get a copy of this book? Because I think it's a must-have for most parents and teachers as well.
Right. I'm available on Instagram at MS Thulo. That's my Instagram handle, Miss Thulo.
MS Thulo.
Yes, at Miss Thulo, MS Thulo on Instagram. DM me and I'll sort you out with a copy.
All right. Lovely chatting to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I think you should also consider child psychology as well.
Got you.
All right, there we have it. There we go. That's teacher, writer and poet Sebabatso Thulo, and she joined us this morning for a discussion about her new book titled Dear Black Parents, A Letter from Your Child's Teacher.